I wanted to bring you to my garden. We started out the season here when I first got this role, and I introduced you to my garden. The hellebores were out at that time. We came back when the daylilies were out. Sort of a peak bloom for my garden is the daylily season. The fall is when the Japanese maples kick in and show us what they're all about. There's a lot of really nice colors. We're just a little bit late, but there's still lots to see. So my garden now, there's not a lot of flowers. I have a couple of annuals that I leave in. I leave in as long as I can. There's still pollinators around. I think when we have a 16-degree day like we're going to get next week, the bees are going to be back out, so they still need some food. As we go through, you're going to see a lot of different shades of oranges and yellows and reds, and that changes really quickly. As you pan across, you can sort of see a really good array of reds and oranges. This one right in front of us is Oisami, and I pointed that out earlier as one of my favorites. It has every single color. It's got purple, it's got red, it's got yellow. It looks like it's on fire, and a lot of people really like that. Koto no Ito is my absolute favorite. I pointed that out earlier this season as well. It's just starting to get its color. It's a little bit later in turning than some of the others. Some of them have already dropped their leaves. So I like that. Again, it extends the fall season and the fall garden. This is Shayna. Shayna looks exactly the same now as she did earlier in the season. She doesn't really change color, but the form and the size of the leaf is sort of what we do with that. This is one plant I do want to point out, the Lespedeza. This has been flowering for a few weeks now, and I absolutely love it. It's probably one of the most underused plants, in my opinion, for the fall garden. So we turn around, a lot of the variegated plants are still variegated, so they still accent against the solid colors, even though the colors are changing. This is a green maple throughout the year, and now it's starting to turn red. As we head back this way towards the pond, I've got a couple of ginkgos that I really like the yellow that the ginkgos go. So this is actually a variegated ginkgo, and you can still see the variegation stripes through the yellow. I think that's pretty neat. As this grows, you're really going to see that in the fall, and I like that. I added this guy this year. You won't have seen him in our first tour. This is a Pinus Wallichiana, and it's a variegated Zebrina. It's not supposed to be that hardy, so I'm going to cover it up and hope for the best. I do that a lot in my garden. This is what everybody keeps talking about. I love this thing. This is Albizia Summer Chocolate. It's not changing color. It has been this purple the entire season, and it accents everything in the garden. Father Gilla is one I pointed out. We have it at the TBG as well, and it's my absolute favorite shrub. It's getting accents of red and yellow and orange, and holding on to a little bit of green. That has beautiful spring flowers. We pointed it out in an earlier tour. And this is the fall color, and I think it's worth having in your garden. Another accent that everybody seems to like is the Begonia grandis. So this is a hardy begonia that comes back every year. Not the same plant. You'll notice the little bulbs that are on here. Those actually fall to the ground, and those are what grow next year. So it's not the same plant that pops up, but you end up getting them come up through the garden. I've got a white form and a pink form in the garden here. Hanamatoy is spectacular. This is a pink and red variegated Japanese maple that turns fire engine red, and I absolutely love it. And you'll notice the dwarf hosta collection that we pointed out before, they're all getting some fall color as well. And again, utilizing that space in your garden. The sumac has finished. We're missing that. This is the Phoenix snakebark maple. Really nice color yellow leaves, beautiful tree. This is all about the winter, so we're actually going to have you guys come back in the winter to look at the winter garden here. But this bark is starting to turn red. The entire trunk turns red with white lines through it like a candy cane. That's why I put it in front of the window here. Ruby slippers. That is the oak leaf hydrangea, and it's just starting to get its color. It is spectacular this year. You can see how many flowers were on it. Normally I might get in there and cut those flowers down. I decided to leave them this year. I think in the winter garden, they might add a little element of excitement in the garden. As we come around, you can still see the Japanese painted ferns are still doing their thing. They look good. Again, who knows, we might have warm weather right into November. So I want to keep a lot of these things. That's why I don't clean them up. You'll notice a lot of leaves and stuff. I leave them in the garden. That's where the pollinators go. That's where some of the native bees winter over. And I think that's important. Don't do too much cleanup. Do it in the spring. There are some things like this laurel. This is Mr. Goldstrike. This is not hardy here. It's been here for 3 or 4 years now. I cover it with a rose hut over the winter, bend it down, throw it in, it winters over. Protection can help, and I have a really cool plant that not a lot of people have in their garden. The other thing to point out is the magnolias. The magnolias are starting, they're not really known for their fall color. They get a really, really nice yellow. I've done a lot of pruning on this. This guy has decided to take off several times this year, and I've taken probably 4 feet off of him. I do a lot of pruning, and I mentioned that earlier. If you have as many things as I do, that becomes really important, and you've got to commit to that. And I have committed to keeping this in scale as much as it drives me crazy. Something that comes out when the weather gets cold is this cypress. It's a variegated cypress. It doesn't show a lot of white until this cold weather, and then it really starts to show. When the snow flies, you see all these little white flecks on the blue. The last thing I'll point out is the Japanese umbrella pine. I pointed it out before. I absolutely love it. As the leaves start to fall around it, that's the conifer that you're going to see in the garden for most of the winter. Protected, nice shape, beautiful form. That's the tour of my garden. I hope you've enjoyed my fall garden. We will bring you back in the winter at some point just to see the form of some of the Japanese maples and talk about maybe a little bit of winter pruning. Have a great day.